That's a weird introduction, and I don't hate cats, I just way prefer dogs. I am going to start with a little video. I presented about 12 months ago, and my mother just so happened to be around the corner, and I snuck her in at the back, and I didn't realize how many times I referenced my mum in my presentations as being the person who doesn't understand how the internet works. And then at the end, she was like, I'm really proud of you, which was nice, but she was like, can you stop using me as an example of an idiot? But I'm going to do that anyway, so this is a little video to show that. So I was just watching Parks and Recreation, which is what that's from, and I couldn't believe that they were talking about cookies on Parks and Rec, and I would just use it in every presentation I do. As Carl said, my name's McAthy. I was CEO of Cubed until Tuesday, where I exited the company, and I am kind of unemployed right now. But I'm going to be building a bunch more tech, and that's what the next sort of year or so will be for me. Cubed is and was a marketing attribution platform. So before I just turn into a full-on nerd and start talking numbers and maths, I'm just going to get the house lights turned up and get everyone to stand up, please. I appreciate someone's got a broken leg at the back, so you don't have to. Can we get the lights up so I can actually see? There we go. Oh, sorry. Okay, so stay standing if you agree that you need to understand how your marketing performance impacts revenue. Sit down if you don't. Good. That was kind of a test that my mum's not here. Okay, so the next thing is, who here has heard of marketing attribution? If you understand what marketing attribution is, stay standing. If you don't, sit down. It's no judgment. Cool, so of the room, marketing attribution, we're looking about 60, 70% of people know what it is. Okay, now, if you have done any form of attribution in any form, stay standing. If you've never done it, but you know what it is, sit down. Cool. So we're about 40% left now. If you've used the Google product to do attribution, you kind of haven't done attribution, so sit down. Holy shit. Okay, and if you have done non-machine learning algorithms, sit down. Cool. So we've gone from a room of everyone agreeing that we really do need to use data to show performance. Sit down, yeah, thank you very much, everyone. And the lights can go down so people don't squint. Thank you. So we've gone from a room of everyone saying it's really important for us to use data to understand performance and then drive revenue, yet it is attribution that is so important within their journey. Now, what attribution means for the people who sat down at the start is the ability to assign value to everything within a consumer's journey. So we just saw about product market fit within the journey and the awareness part and the consideration part and the purchase phase. But marketing happens throughout their journey, and the perception that a user has of a brand as we go through that process changes. And the value of the marketing activity we have throughout that process changes. And we need to be able to say, when we put an ad out that's just a display impression, how much value does that have versus the PPC ad that actually looks like it's driving a conversion? I will fall off stage. That is definitely going to happen. There is a step there. I'm going to try to be a little bit more over here. So what we're going to talk about today covers what you tend to have conversations with marketing managers, CMOs, is at the start of the year, you're doing your budget and they go, okay, what do we want? Well, we want more. So we want more revenue, more people coming to the website, more people engaging with us. So what we're talking about there is quantity. And that's what often is the case, is that they go, we just want more people buying things. What we actually have on the other side of that is, well, they go, well, so you just want loads of shit coming to your website? And they're like, no, we don't want just more. We want more quality, actually. But we don't have the next conversation that follows that. How do we define quality across the board? So there's three things that I'm just going to go through today. Impressions, which is mainly for display and social media. The unfortunate thing is Facebook are, I'm trying not to swear as much these days, but they're really fucking annoying that they don't give you any decent data, and the data they do give you is manipulated to make them look good. So we're going to mainly cover off display marketing. The second one we're going to talk about is visits. How do we define what a quality visit is? And the last one is, what do we define as a quality conversion? So we're going to go through those three. So the first thing is impressions. Now what's interesting at conferences is very rarely do people actually talk about display marketing, because Google owns quite a bit of a monopoly in display, in the sense as it runs DoubleClick, which is one of the biggest DSPs. And marketers who don't really look at display go, well, that's just fluffy things. How many eyeballs, how many people see those ads? And then there's the people who really give a shit about it. And there's not much crossover. So I'm going to talk to you guys today about display, and just by a show of hands, like, who understands how display works? Cool, so there's a good chunk of people. I'm going to try to cover a grandioso level, and then we'll scale back into what's realistic in data right now to define what actually matters and what works. So, really ugly slides, I apologize, but let's go basic. So there are a number of impressions. A display ad is served. So you've got a news website with a display banner at the top, and your brand ad, it appears on there. And every time it appears on there for an individual, an impression is served. Now, what then happens is there are a number of people when you talk about impressions. So it's not just there was 10 million impressions, but there might have only been 1 million people who saw ads 10 times. So the relationship between those is really important. Are we serving more ads to an individual, or are we just serving more people and they're seeing less ads? So that's one of the key metrics that you need to look at. The next one is total site visits. So what you've got there is everyone who's come to the website, and then you've got the people who clicked on the advertising itself. So the people who haven't seen me do a talk before, because this statistic is crazy, does anyone think they know or know the click-through rate on display advertising? That is nearly right, because the actual is 0.005% is the click-through rate for display advertising. But what the display industry has actually said is that half of that is fraud. So the actual number, and I get this wrong because someone shouted out, but it's 0.00025 click-through rate. And that's because it's not supposed to be clicked on. Display marketing is to change the perception of the user. Did they have any awareness of brand or not? And if they did, are we increasing their propensity to convert? So we're making them more likely to convert after seeing that piece of advertising. That's what it's for. It's the similar thing to TV. You don't get a click-through rate on TV, although we've all seen those ads that they've copied the creative from the internet, and it says click here on the TV ad, and you're like, nope, that doesn't work. But the reality of display is that you've got this space where it should, and the goal of that ad should be just to say, did you know about our product and our service? This is going to make you more likely to come back. Then you've got, if my clicker works, the concept of post-impression. And this is where it breaks logic. Because if someone sees an ad and then within 30 days comes to the website, it goes, that ad drove that visit. Yep. Ridiculous. You think that's worse, but we've got conversions coming here because we want people to buy stuff, and if we use e-commerce as an example, they've got the thing called post-impression sales. So if I saw an ad 29 days ago for a product on a website, and I've only seen one ad, and then 29 days later I come to the website and I buy something, they will take that conversion and say 100% of that conversion is ours in display, because you saw that one ad that was on this website over here. And that is the reason why a lot of marketers go to display, because it's not really going to impact your sales in that way. It's not got 100% of that sale. And that's what post-impression sales is actually doing, is it steals all the sales away. So you're sitting in those marketing meetings where you've got the PPC person, the SEO person, the email person going, this is how many sales I've got in my Google Analytics or Adobe. And then the display person goes, yeah, I've got 400 sales. And I'm going to take all of those sales from PPC because they saw an ad 29 days ago. Does anyone know why we have 30-day look-back windows and 30-day cookies? Does anyone, go on. Do you know why?
Sorry?
Do you know why? We have 30-day look-back windows. The look-back window on a cookie is 30 days. Okay, that is a thing that people know, right? Cookies are 30 days in most marketing applications. Isn't it crazy? This is a room full of marketers, and we don't know why. It's because people wanted to get paid. That's how long invoice terms are. So back when paid advertising first came about, it was people needed to get paid, so you have a 30-day window on your invoice, and at the end of that, however many things happened in that 30 days, we'll pay you for. And that is the only reason we have 30-day windows, 30-day cookies. That's crazy because that is nothing to do with the customer. The customer's impact and the brand impact that a piece of marketing has on a user has nothing to do with how long it takes to pay someone. Yet that is an industry standard of cookies. So we live in this world where you can't actually say how much impact that impression has. And yet 40% of digital spend is in display marketing, and it's increasing because this is how TV will be bought. TV is migrating from you buy a slot, and you do that through the big media publishers, to how you buy YouTube ads at the moment. It will be that programmatically you'll be targeting users. When we move into more video on demand and more live streaming of video through the internet, and we can serve dynamic ads to people whilst they're watching TV, like my mother, those kind of ads will be served in exactly the same way that we do our display marketing at the moment. And yet all of the logic that we use at the moment to do display understanding and the value of an impression is broken. Because what we want to do is understand the concept of this square. So when someone has come to the website, are they more likely to convert or not if they've seen a display ad? And if they've not seen a display ad, that's our baseline. Because those people haven't seen display. So the people who have seen display, are they more likely to convert? And that's the first sort of quick win. And that's the answer that a marketer can explain to someone else is, did they see it or didn't they see it? And that's the biggest thing we can do. So post-impression is not really good enough right now. So we need to move on to the next thing. So we need to understand the propensity change. And that's something that's really quite complicated to do because you have to have a lot of data. Because we're talking about some companies, they serve tens, hundreds of millions of impressions on a monthly basis. The scale of this is quite intimidating to a lot of companies, and therefore this is quite expensive to do, but it is possible. And you can do things, and this is what I've been spending a lot of time recently over the last couple of years, developing algorithms to enable to do that. So that's the thing where I kind of moan for the first 10 minutes of my talk, and something that most people just need to understand. This is where the future of display is going, and this is where a big, probably 80% of media spend in digital marketing is going to be, is in this space. So it's worth understanding at least this right now. Now we're going to do something that actually people can do, because that was just me moaning. So when we talk about the quality of a visit, what do people think brands should use as the defining thing on what the quality of a visit is? That's a question. I didn't frame it as a question. I'm so conscious of falling off this stage that I'm just like half thinking about things. So what do people think? Like, shout out, what do you think a quality visit is? Time on site? Pages per session? Money? Low bounce rate? Sign up? Cool. Any conversion rate people here? Because that's a pretty good one. So most people, when you talk about this, is what we want to monitor the quality of a visit. How do we understand that over time? One of the first things that people talk about is conversion rate, so which turns into money, but it's understanding what is my conversion rate across the board. The problem with conversion rate, and I'm very conscious there's a lot of conversion people here, but the problem with conversion rate is it shows you how good you are at converting people today. So a lot of the time, especially with visit-based conversion rate, it's saying how many visits did I get to my website, and then how many of them turned into sales. Now, you could be a little bit smarter and go, what is my visitor conversion rate? Which, if you don't know, Google launched their calculated metrics in the background of GA probably 2 years ago. I don't log into GA, so I don't know, but it was quite a while ago. And you can add a custom metric in there that says how many people came to the website and how many people converted. And that is so much better as a metric to understand conversion rate than the one that they've baked into Google Analytics. But even conversion rate, all that does is it limits the time window. It says, of the interactions we had today, how many of them turned into a sale? Now, in an average e-commerce website, we have 100 people coming to the website, and your conversion rate will be 1%. If it's higher, well done, but let's just do the math easily. So you've got a 1% conversion rate on a website, which means 99% of people aren't doing the thing that you want them to do. But we've got a 30–40% bounce rate, as the gentleman over there said. So those people are being delivered from a marketing message and are not getting what they want within the first 30 seconds or within the first interaction and are leaving. So we need to understand that in the concept of marketing performance. So how can we improve our marketing to deliver a better context to that person as they come to the website? Or is the landing page not good enough? There is a bit in the middle, so we're talking about 59% of the people who have come to the website, they've done something, and then didn't buy, they didn't convert. They're not in that 1%. They're the super interesting people that we forget about if we just concentrate on that 1%. We need to look at the 59% of people who didn't bounce, but they did things, because they're more likely to come back to your website than the people who bounced. And they're way more likely to come back to your website than the people who have never heard of you. So they're really interesting. We need to spend more time understanding that. So conversion rate worries about today. What we want to talk and what we want to create is a metric that explains how we increase the likelihood of someone to come back and convert. How are we going to understand the little things? And when we talk about this, we talk about micro conversions. So a sale, an engagement, a lead on a website that is their main conversion factor is a macro conversion. But all of the little things that build up within that process, we want to call them something. Micro conversions are those little things. So in an e-commerce environment, that could be someone viewing a product page, someone viewing a blog post, someone adding something to the basket. All of those things are showing us that that person is more likely to convert. And we've got that data already, and you can set this up in Adobe, you can set this up in GA. So let's put this in the context of a real person. This is Ben, my friend who's a graphic designer, styled it after him. And Ben came to the website and bought something direct. Now, the problem with that is that that visit looks easy, and that's what you'll see in Google Analytics. You'll see that direct conversion, and then you'll go, direct is working because he came to the website and did that. But actually, there was a bunch of things that Ben did in this visit where he added another item to the basket and he viewed a couple of other product pages. So we need to understand the value of that visit. But actually, it's way more complicated than that because Ben came 3 times before that. And if that was 4 different days, each one of those days historically would have no conversions against it. And yet, this direct visit is getting all of the value. But it's not even as simple as this because in each one of those visits, Ben did things. Ben showed us if he's more likely to convert or not. And so when you then go, well, actually, it's more complicated than this because it's not all of those micro conversions. He also saw some display advertising as well. And all of this costs money. Like, we have to pay to do display advertising. We have to pay to drive people to our website through whatever channel. So this journey went from something that looked quite linear in the sense of it was one visit or was 3 visits. And now we've got this higgledy-piggledy, which I think is an English phrase that might not translate well, where we want to understand actually how likely was Ben to convert as he went through this journey. But as we go through, we want to know, did that action increase or decrease his likelihood to convert? So we can start with just seeing that display ads at the front. And at that point, we can use a machine learning algorithm that trains on success and says, when someone has seen a display ad, are they more likely to convert than someone who hasn't? And we can say that at this point, he only had a 1% chance to convert in a 2-week period. But as Ben goes through this journey and he interacts with the website, that goes up. So when he comes to the website, that jumps up. He's more likely to convert now, because he did a number of factors. But this visit, he came to the website and didn't do much. So we're actually decreasing his likelihood to convert. And as you go through, that can go up and down as you go through the journey, eventually getting to the point where he got sent an email, and now we're ready to convert. And that's the point where he comes back and converts. Now, this is all well and good doing it in PowerPoint. But actually, there's some numbers behind this. There we go. So what we've got there is the propensity to convert. And I apologize that this is maths and numbers. But the propensity to convert is basically saying how likely is that person going to convert in the future? And as we saw, that changed over time. Now, what's interesting there is that's not the value of the visit. What the value of the visit is the difference between them. So he went from never engaging with us, so he was 0, and that had 0 value. But that impression was served, increased it by 1.3%. So we can put a positive delta against that. So that impressions, we then can have some tangible value that means something to the brand. And as we go through, we can say that visit had a much bigger impact than you think they did. Now the problem, and the reason why I joke about Google products not working, is that obviously Google makes their money through AdWords and DoubleClick. It's not surprising. Does anyone work for Google here? Cool. I did follow someone in Latvia recently who worked for Google, but he had to run off to a plane, which was good. So the problem with Google products is obviously they make their money through those. I've never seen a Google representative or an analytics platform suggest that you spend less money in PPC. But the logic here is that what we want to do is say, how valuable is that visit? How valuable are those impressions? So we can make a decision about whether we invest more or less into those spaces. Because behind each one of these visits, you've got all of the pages they engaged with. You have the keywords, the ad copy that was used. And those dimensions, you can then understand the value of all of those interactions. So we can see the ones that are positive here. And that's when someone's bought. So you can go, these ones are really positive. They're the ones that we're actually able to understand the value of a visit. Now what's interesting here is this doesn't only work for when someone has bought. You can start doing this when you don't have that sale that's come in. You now have all of these previous visits. So they can increase or decrease the likelihood of that person converting. And this is where you can start to use marketing automation to change bids. How much can I spend on this person? How much more likely are they to convert? Should I stop spending because they're going to convert anyway? And you can feed this into landing page testing. You can feed this into email sends. You can feed this into automatic bid manipulation. And you can start to say, well, that person is more likely to convert, so I won't spend as much. This person is less likely to convert. I need to bring them back into the consideration phase. Presentation movement. So what you can then do is compare things like conversion rate to the value of a visit and that propensity change. Now what you'll see here is just because conversion rate increases, it doesn't mean the value of the visit does, and vice versa. So what we found for a couple of the retailers that I was working with, that their conversion rate decreased between Christmas and New Year, which meant that in the logic there, they would say, well, we're not going to spend any money during that period. But the value of the visits increased dramatically because a lot of those people were looking at what they were buying in January. But they were looking, when they were sitting at home, they were stuffed full of Christmas food, and they were just sitting on their phones looking at what they're going to spend their January paycheck on. But if you don't advertise far enough back, you're not going to drive that sale, and they're going to go to your competitor who is in that space. So my last section is how do we understand the value of a conversion, which sounds a little bit weird because revenue is normally the answer to that question. But the problem is the value and the quality of that conversion can change dramatically when you look at segmentation. So looking at the count of sales. So when you've got a one visit journey, so it took one visit to convert that person versus 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a general theme across most e-commerce companies, is that a lot of people in the data will look like they converted on the first visit. Now the problem with this is that when you put another axis on this, so you can put the revenue per sale, the one visit journeys will have a very low revenue. So this is actual data for a client. I've just made it pretty. Click. where the one visit journeys had an average revenue of £35, which is okay. But when you look at the journeys that took a little bit longer, so that person actually had to come back and convert, and you get to 4 visits or 5 visits, the average revenue goes up to £120. And you don't have to spend that much money to bring that person in. So you have a very different audience here. So this is where we go into where the future of marketing is, and I say future, but we should all be doing a form of it now, is audience-based marketing. So it's talking about retargeting lists. It's talking about having that segmentation within your marketing strategy that targets 2 different types of customers or 18 different types of customers. Because there is a massive difference between the people who are coming to your website and buying something for £35 in 1 visit and the people who are spending 5 visits to then spend 120. So we need to be able to segment that in both our messaging and everything that we're doing there. So I first presented this slide here at an analytics conference, and it got a bit of feedback, and it meant that a lot of people went back and looked at their data and went, holy shit, that is so different to the way that I thought our company worked. This is the biggest takeaway of my talk. The rest you can ignore. This is really interesting. So the context of this is the green bar is how much revenue you made, and the red bar is how much you spent to get that revenue. So we have the first sale. So the first time that someone buys from your company, you spend around 60 to 70% of your revenue in cost. Now, when you get onto the second sale and the third sale and the fourth sale, that changes quite dramatically. Because you then move to spending about 10% of your revenue on the second sale, which sounds really good. What sounds even better is customers will spend more with you. Your revenue will increase because they trust you more. They know more about your brand. They've seen that you've delivered the product or service, so they're more likely to come back and buy. What this is a huge opportunity for marketers. One, let's not use cost per acquisition in our reporting. We need to have 2 metrics at least. We need to have what is the cost to acquire a customer? And then we need what is our retention cost on future sales. That's not the first time that someone buys. Because what we should be doing is saying, let's manage our acquisition cost of getting people to use our company, our service, and buy from our products from our brand, separate to the amount of money and optimization we do on having people come back and buy second and third time. They're very different conversations, they're very different messaging, and it's very different creative. You wouldn't want to serve the same ads to someone who's bought 15 times from you as you would someone who has no clue about your brand. And this data is universal across all products and all services. And I had a friend of mine used to be the CMO of Jaguar Land Rover, and I showed him the data for our e-commerce clients, and he was like, yeah, but like I'm selling a 70 grand car. It's not the same for me. And I was like, it exactly is the same for you, because you spend a lot of time out there in the marketplace convincing people that they should buy a Jaguar or Land Rover. But then after they've bought that, what do? He was like, oh, we still send them things, we send them emails, but you're not sending them enough. You're not managing that message. Because a lot of people, their next car, and it might be 10 years later for someone who is in high revenue, their next car, they'll go, well, do I want a Mercedes now? But if you can manage that messaging after that sale, you're going to make them way more likely to do that. And we can afford to do that as marketers. What we do is we waste all our money before the first sale. But what we do is we then use all of the people who have bought second, third, fourth time to improve our average, because it doesn't cost us anything. If we spent more time and effort and money optimizing for second, third sale, we would actually decrease our cost per acquisition because we get more people buying second and third time. So, I've gone through quality of impressions, I've gone through quality of visits, I've gone through quality of conversions. So we need to define quality, accuracy, and then quantity will follow. Thank you very much for your time, guys.